assistant production manager here. Nope, fumbled it. Fumbled it, so close.
Soiled it. Soiled it.
You want to give it a shot?
All right, watch this. Hi, welcome to the Nix YouTube channel. My name's Jamin. I'm a bootmaker here at Nix.
And I'm Andrew. I'm assistant production manager and lead bootmaker here at Nix. And today we're going to be talking about lasting. In a nutshell, you're stretching leather around a foot mold and securing it to leather until it's tight and looks nice. A last is a foot mold. We use it to stretch the leather of the boot around, and it has a plate underneath, and the nails will hit the plate and clench over. So this is basically just the base shape that fits your dimensions of your foot best. It's kind of the beginning steps of what you're going to feel. So like, of course, it needs to be sized right and sewn right and cut right. That way everything falls together. But what you're going to feel in terms of how firm the boot holds you, aside from the fit, is the lasting. So like, for example, laced toes are notorious for being a little bit more roomy. And that's because of the construction and also how thick that liner is around. It's a full 8-ounce liner.
So the boot gets its size, like
Size,
the shape, yeah.
What else?
And if you don't clinch your nails, the boot falls apart.
That's true. From a production standpoint, yeah, if your heel nails aren't clenched, as soon as they start putting the bottoming nails in and really setting them, everything's going to start sagging out, and it's just going to have to be ripped up and done again.
Or if you don't get your vamps tight, then you have a giant air gap, and then when Mike goes to stitch it, it blows up, and then you hear words you've never heard before.
So I guess from a production standpoint, every department is important for the departments after. It kind of sets the baseline at every step for all the departments, and sometimes a small mistake in one department, like lasting, can equate to this, like a boot that has to get torn down and healing. Made it all the way that far, but because it was lasted a little off or a nail wasn't clenched, it just kind of ruins. And then from consumer point of view, it's the fit, the feel, the look.
Number one is probably how frustrating it is. You can do the exact same thing twice, and one boot will be fine, and the other will just be completely screwed. And it was just like, yeah, it was super frustrating learning how to last.
Yeah, there's definitely a learning curve to it. One thing that surprised me was how little you actually have to pull. Like, you watch it and it looks like we're pulling really hard, but it's only in a select few areas that we're pulling really hard. Everything else is just kind of getting it just tight and just making the shape of the last. If I'm coming in work early, I'll get here sometimes at 5, sometimes at 6. And I just kind of prioritize, look at what's on the rack coming, what's on the rack that was started the day previous, and just kind of see what's going to take the longest term in terms of like glue times or if it has to sit. So like prioritize what's going to take the longest to finish. So I start those first. But
I usually wake up around 5:30 a.m. on a normal day if I'm not doing overtime. Sometimes I'll come in at 5 o'clock, so usually wake up around between 3 and 4 o'clock. Yeah, come into work, usually show up around like 15 minutes or so before 7, and then just get situated, see what's on my rack, because Andrew gets in before me, and he just tells me what to do. So he puts whatever I need to do first on my rack, and then I'll like organize what he's given me, see what needs to be done, and then just get situated, settle down, and then get to work.
For me, it's largely workflow. So I just kind of control the incoming, because it all comes in on one rack, and then I just kind of disperse everything out between, the 14 people, just to make sure no one's getting too hard of a day, someone's not going to finish too early, and then just kind of take on some of the harder projects.
My day-to-day is usually just doing a lot of the smaller tasks that Andrew divvies out to me. Another thing is this rack right here. I'm in charge of checking every single boot that leaves the department before it goes to stitching or gluing. So I check for quality, parts, make sure the tickets, everything's matched up, etc. And I also still take on, like, I help pass out boots sometimes. I can take over if Andrew's on vacation or whatever, stuff like that. So
depends on the department. Like if bottoming's looking kind of light, I'll prioritize quick boots and just kind of flood it into bottoming. If bottoming's looking fine, then it's just whatever's going to take the longest.
Yeah, same. There's one of the things is being able to juggle, like what tasks you need to do. Sometimes you have to wait on certain things, like boots to dry if they're soaked, glue to dry if you need to fix something or you're gluing something or whatever. There's just like a million things you have to be able to do something and keep it in the air and then be able to be productive and still do something else. And that's one of the like skills as a boot maker, really. Knowing when to stop talking is a big one. Because you're working here, you're with your coworkers, you get along with them, and you talk, and especially when we come in early in the morning, that's just like that's our yap time.
Yeah.
Once it's like 7 o'clock or things start piling up, or you just hit a point. It's like okay, it's time to get to
It's
work.
time
That's
to lock in.
yeah.
Mhm.
That's when you throw on the headphones and you just got to get to work. So
Yeah. For me, usually I find a song and I just obsess over it, and I'll just put it on repeat for like 2 hours.
That is-
just literally the same song on repeat over and over. Sometimes the liners are so thick and they're so like maybe they'll have like some scarring. They'll try to rip along the scars, or if they're just so thick and boardy, they don't want to pleat, especially around the toe. That's the worst because then you have these running pleats. So you have to like get your flat knife and undo all your glue and then spray everything wet after you've re-glued and waited. And it just kind of sucks to go back over something that you've already done. Rebuilds.
rebuilds is a
Yeah.
big one.
Yeah. If people don't take care of the boots properly, the leather maintenance, the quarter leather that is on the inside goes all the way down. That can be like super stiff and boardy and basically almost impossible to work with. It'll chunk off.
Yeah, or it'll just fall apart.
Yeah.
Like as you're grabbing it. Yeah. And Technora thread is my pet peeve. You have to it buffs, like it dulls your knives so quick.
Another thing, when a part doesn't act the way it should, so like if you open a fresh box of nails, usually the tacks that we use, they're very jagged and sharp on the ends, and when we push, it's just a light push and it'll just stay there. But if it's something went wrong with the manufacturing, it won't stick, and so a whole box of nails is almost unusable, or you just have to push really hard, and that's never fun.
Or bad batches of leather that are super stiff.
That too.
Ooh.
There's just something that's so nice about getting like a 9.5 to an 11D H&W single band.
I know what you're saying.
And it just like the insole is trimmed perfectly and everything just falls into place and all your nails are like perfectly spaced out, and it just it's just that feeling of like finishing a Lego set or something. It's really nice.
It's really like it's just the instant I know exactly what he's talking about. It's like a dopamine rush. Like when everything just goes right. It's so nice. Like you don't have a bad liner, you have enough material but not too much material. All your pleats lay nice and flat, your heels super clean, like nail spaced perfectly, everything clinched, nothing like bent the wrong way or whatever. Yeah, it's
but those
when everything
are
goes
kind
right.
of rare.
They are
sometimes.
rare.
Like I had a pretty solid one today. But the other thing I would say is just like beating personal records is always fun. Or like, man, I popped off today. Like I did so many, and then you just strut around at the end of the day. That's pretty fun. You do something for so long, it's just going to become a little bit mundane.
Yeah.
New models and things like this help break it up. Another thing I think people have a misconception on is, and I'm not sure if it's a misconception, but I feel like some people order so many extras on a boot because they think it might be better. And after things start piling on, it just makes it so complicated, and it actually sometimes takes away from the integrity of the boot because, we're dealing with so many layers and it's so thick and there's so many extras, and it's hard to get everything straight and everything tight the more you add to it. I think like sometimes people think the old school way is like the best way, like everything has to be sewn by hand, everything. I've seen people talk about sit lasting is like the way to go. And there are pros and cons to stand lasting and sit lasting. I prefer stand lasting. It's an easier transition into other points of production. But I think some people have a misconception on things like hand sewing.
There's people think bigger is better, like especially when it comes to leather. They think, oh, I want the thickest leather. No, you don't.
There's a few official projects like the Brandle as well. I mean, the Brandle's pretty much locked in. We're just waiting for them to start flowing through.
No, I want more Brandles to come, like start working on the Brandles, really start locking in, working on those more. In general, just keep going on, doing what I'm doing, progressing, moving up. The free boot every year.
That
So
is
if I stay
nice,
another
yeah.
year, I get another free boot.
Mhm.
I'm gonna be here 30 years from now. My house is gonna be 50% boot.
Now in management, I think it's really nice to see people come in with interest and like learn it and having that success. It's super rewarding. Watching others kind of achieve and succeed is cool. And I'm addicted to making boots. If I'm being completely honest, it's been like, and this is a great place to work, but I mentioned previously I have super bad ADHD, so I get like hyper focused on things, and boots just have been an 8-year long hyper focus. I just love it so much.
No, I usually I go home, cook a meal if I'm not too lazy, if I don't have OT or something like that. Play video games, watch TV, just play the piano, lounge around. Doom scrolling on Instagram Reels for 3 hours straight.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
That's nice. For me, I have a 4-year-old. As soon as I get home, it's mitts off, wrestling match the entire time until bedtime. So my unwinding. Sometimes I can get a little bit of that like unwinding relaxation just from playing with my daughter. Just start consuming media as much as you can. Just start watching the process. It doesn't. I mean, if you want to get into boot making, first you should like research companies and what they provide, so you know what style. Like if you're doing it on your own, look into what style makes sense for you, or if you're looking to work for a company, again, see what style works for you. But as soon as you kind of have an idea of what you want to do, stitch down shoes instead of boots or hand sewing, just start consuming as much media as you can so you get familiar with the processes and the terms and all that. Because that puts you way ahead of the game, just coming in and having that knowledge, because it's a lot to take in day one, because alongside of just the general process and all these little tricks that you have to do, and just general production, there's a lot of terminology that's thrown at you, and so it can be overwhelming both physically and mentally.
It's not mindless either.
No.
You don't have to pay attention. You have to think. You have to know the ramifications of your actions.
Fast paced. It's
yeah.
very fast paced, and it's very physically demanding.
Like once it starts like 7 o'clock, you are on until 3:30.
It's like an all day workout.
Your feet are not the same. That's the biggest one. Even I'll recommend against sizing differently. Like don't get a 9E and a 9.5E or whatever. Don't get mismate sizing because your feet aren't that far missized. Like unless they actually are. Unless they are, then do it. But
force it.
For most people, your feet are close enough in size to get the same size, but they're still going to be very slightly different.
But if you're a customer who has multiple pairs and they're of different leathers and different styles, different patterns fall on the last differently. If you have different style lasts, even one, you're changing your arch and also the toe box, and then so say you have like an H&W, they're both black, they're both the same size, but one's a lace to toe. The lace to toe is probably going to feel a little bit looser because of the construction and the leather thickness. It's so much thicker, and there's a seam that runs down the middle on the inside. So all of these things kind of contribute to some discrepancies in the feelings. Well, that's the lasting process. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good day. What? Disassociation. Do you have a piano or a keyboard?
It's an electric piano.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Keyboard.
It's not a keyboard.
All right, ready? Lock in.
You're locked in. I'm locked in.
I'm locked in.
You're locked in.
Thanks for watching.
Nick's Boots. We're the best.